Welcome back, everybody, to the Even Your Dynasty show.
We just got breaking news in.
Welcome, everybody, to the Even Your Dynasty show. It is going to be solo Cody tonight. Sorry about that, everybody. Dan is he had a tooth pulled, and Ricky's unavailable tonight. So you guys just have me tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about the series against Arizona. Obviously, a little bit of a disappointing series against St. Louis. But even so, they went 3-3 in the last 6 since our last live show. And even with that, they've still gained some ground on the Mets, who are on just a full-on free fall right now. They have left the door wide open. They are pretty much sending out invitations and begging people to pass them in the standings. They just got swept by the Phillies right after, I believe, they lost 2 of their 3 in their previous series as well. So you're looking at, even with the Giants kind of treading water the last 2 series, they still picked up ground. Now, that all said, they're staring down the barrel the next 10 games. They've got 7 against LA. So it's going to be a little bit of a tall order, but they did what they should. You look at what the Giants did with their rotation. They've lined up their rotation. They're going to have Verlander go game 1, Webb game 2, Robbie Ray in game 3. And that's going to, not only does that mean you're going to get your best going in this series, when you turn around and have to face the Dodgers for 4 games after the Arizona series, that means Webb and Ray should be available to go the first 2 games of that series. So when you've got 7 against LA and you really need to take probably 4 to feel like you have a shot, take 4 in that series, or of the 7, I should say, and then hopefully at least take 2 against Arizona in Arizona. And then, then you've got the last 6 against St. Louis and Colorado, where you're going to really have to turn on the Jets in that point. But, you feel like you kind of have to take 4 minimum against LA, and they're giving themselves the best chance. And I agree with this, Mark. The 5th starter is going to do us in. That and the bullpen. Bullpen's been really rough, but, they're hanging in there. I think they're a little bit capped on even if they make the playoffs, because, at the end of the day, the Mets are only 5 games over 500. It's not going to take this great record to get in, it seems. But even if they do sneak in, the 4th or 5th starters are a bit questionable, obviously, right now in the Giants rotation. The bullpen is really questionable at the back end. Ryan Walker is, as frustrating as it is, and I mean, I've been super frustrated with Ryan Walker this season. As frustrating as it is, like, he's their best option. They're down. They have no Randy Rodriguez, probably next season either. And they traded away Rogers and Doval. So all of their back end options, it's pretty much down to Ryan Walker. And, maybe if Eric Miller gets healthy, that's another guy you can kind of throw in the late innings. But it's pretty tough, though. The bullpen and the back end of the rotation is just kind of a patchwork thing right now. So the offense is going to just have to keep carrying. We'll see what happens there. I agree, Mark. At least we're not facing Snell and Glasnow, and I don't believe they're going to face Ohtani either. So actually, I think Glasnow is pitching in this series. Now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure I saw Yamamoto and Glasnow in the scheduled, unless maybe the Dodgers changed that. So correct me if I'm wrong on that one. I think the Roberts had announced Glasnow as one of the options, but I don't believe. Yeah, Addy says Glasnow is Sunday's game. Dan had to get a tooth pulled, and Ricky's unavailable today. So you guys just have me. It'll probably be a bit shorter show than usual. I don't think we're going to go the full, hour and a half today when it's just me, but definitely keep the chats firing. I'd love to make this more interactive on this show, because I mean, frankly, I don't have a ton on the docket. I have a few things with the minors that I'd love to touch base with you guys. There's some big stuff going on right now. especially in San Jose and Eugene, that you guys should keep an eye out. They've got their playoff series. Other than that, we'll keep talking a little bit about the big league team, kind of the schedules coming up. I'll start breaking that down here in a moment. And yeah, that's kind of all I've got, set in stone. But if you guys have anything in particular you guys want to talk about, throw it in the chat. I'll give my thoughts, and we'll kind of go from there. But yeah, San Fran fan says missing Wisenhunt and Roop really sucks. Yeah, I think I heard someone say that Wisenhunt might be back for the next time around. We'll see. Obviously Roop is, I think, the big one that really, really hurts. They need Wisenhunt as well. They need, because I mean, as up and down as Wisenhunt kind of was, outside of Seymour having that one good start in St. Louis, it's been a lot of struggles for Seymour, both in the rotation and in the pen. So, we'll see there. Tang has obviously been a roller coaster. He's walking a ton of guys. He's given up not a ton of loud contact, but he does seem to give up like one a game. And then, he strikes out a ton of guys too. So the sweeper's pretty nasty for Tang, but it's not someone you can really trust right now in the rotation. It's kind of a, it's kind of a tough situation to be in with the big league team. And that's why the offense has had to carry, and they've done a great job of it for, pretty much all of September and the very, very end of August. But we'll see if they can keep it together. And yeah, I agree, Tom. We're still in contention in September after all the struggles. We'll take it. I said it a couple of weeks ago with Glenn, where it's a little bit bittersweet. It's so frustrating because how many games did this team cough up earlier in the year that were so winnable? Bullpen blowing games late, no situational baseball to be seen. They were dropped for those 2 months, especially. They were dropping games left and right. I mean, I was talking to Dana Ricky earlier that, they left Jordan Hicks in the rotation for like 10 starts when it was clear that he had no business being anywhere near that. And it's like, how many games did we throw away there? And at some point, these teams have got to start realizing, when it's all said and done, and you look at the standings at the end of the year and the win-loss totals, those games in April and May, they counted the same as the ones in September. So, you got to stop throwing away games early in the year. And putting yourself in these positions, because with the way the Mets have played, there is no reason that the Giants right now should be trailing. Like, they absolutely should be 3 or 4 games up in the wild card right now, given the way the rest of the league has played. But it is what it is. Can't change the past. So they're in it. They have a chance. We're gonna take a look here at the schedules really quick. And I'm going to focus mainly on the Mets. We'll take a look at the Reds as well to see kind of what their schedule looks like. But the way I feel like when I look at the schedules, if the Giants can get to the last 6 and they are within 1 game, I will feel pretty decent about their shots. If they're trailing the Reds, I'd actually feel a little worse given what the Reds have to finish with. But if they're within 1 game of the Mets, I feel like they could pass them. And I'm going to go kind of into why. So starting off with obviously we'll start with the Giants. So they have the next 3 are at home against the Dodgers. Then they go on the road for 3 against Arizona, 4 against the Dodgers on the road. So that's their next 10. That's the gauntlet right there. I'm excluding the Cardinals home series, even though they just lost 2 of 3 to the Cardinals, because, it's at home. It is a series you should win, but obviously you can't take the Cardinals for granted. But to me, I'm separating it for the first 10 and then the last 6. So you have the gauntlet right there where you've got 7 against LA. That, you could easily get buried in that series, and you can't overlook Arizona. Obviously, even though Arizona's traded a ton of people, they're still going to play tough. They still have a lot of guys with Ketel Marte, Corbin Carroll, and Perdomo and all those fellas. They showed that they can still score runs. And if you take a guy like Eduardo Rodriguez, as terrible as he's been as a Diamondback, for granted, and with this team's performance against the left-handed pitching, a guy like him will come up and bite you. So they've got to, they can't overlook Arizona there either. But this is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to prove they belong. It's an opportunity to hang in there. They're within 1.5 of the Mets. And then you take a look over at what the Mets have the next 10. They've got the red hot Texas Rangers at home. Or I'm sorry, the Mets are playing. They have one less game than the Giants. Over the same span, they're going to play 9 games. But they've got the red hot Rangers at home. They've got the Padres, who are fighting for the NL West division with the Dodgers. I think they were one game back or 1.5 back last I looked. So they've got a shot. They've got something they're playing for right there, even though they've kind of wrapped up a playoff spot at this point. And then they have 3 at home against the Nationals, which, I mean, given the way the Mets are playing right now, I wouldn't take any of those games for granted. But there's a very real chance that they could lose, the series against the Rangers and the series against the Padres. And, they'll probably win against the Nationals. So I feel like if the Giants can at least get out of this stretch between the Dodgers and Diamondbacks, they might be able to go 5-5 and not lose any ground. Now, if they go 6-4, I'd feel pretty good about them at minimum staying where they're at, maybe picking up a game at that point or being within that one game. And then the reason why I feel pretty good about their chances, the way the Mets have been playing, they finished the year on the road against the Cubs and Marlins. And we've seen what the Marlins can do as far as like how they've played the Mets tough. They've played a lot of teams tough in the second half. The Cubs, it's in Chicago. That's going to be a really tough series for the Mets. And, it's a division or it's playing on the road. That's going to be tough for them to finish. And the Giants in that same stretch get the Cardinals and Rockies, who by all means, they need to take 2 of 3 from the Cardinals, and they're going to need to sweep the Rockies to finish the year. But if they can, that's a stretch where I think 5-1 is very much in play. And that's why I feel like, you look at the Mets schedule that last 6, I could easily see 3-3 or 2-4. And I don't want to sit here and bank on the Mets collapsing. It's not my style. I'd rather the Giants go out and take it, basically. But when the Mets are handing you a gift, just say thank you and take it. Like, we got to stop messing around and make a move here. But that's kind of where I feel this is where the next 10, you gotta kind of keep yourselves in it. And then kind of peeking over at the Reds schedule. It's not particularly easy. They did take 2 of 3 from San Diego in San Diego after, doing the Giants and everybody a favor by taking 2 of 3 from the Mets the series prior. But they are playing 3 in Sacramento, where the A's have shown they can be kind of tough. I can't foresee a sweep there. I could easily see them winning, 2 or losing 2 in that one. With how the A's offense can get pretty explosive, that could be a tough series for them. They've got to play 3 in St. Louis. The Cardinals aren't a great team this year, but we just saw the Cardinals take 2 from the Giants. That's a division rival. They don't like each other. There's that could be the Cardinals' chance to kind of ruin a division rival season. Then they've got 4 at home against the Cubs. Obviously not going to be an easy series. The Cubs are way over 500 this season. They're playoff bound. And then they've got 3 at home against the Pirates, and they finish with 3 against Milwaukee. Milwaukee probably will have the division wrapped up then, if I had to guess. I can't imagine they're going to be – I mean, maybe they get up for that series. Maybe they don't. It's kind of hard to predict. But, all in all, I think – you look at all these schedules, I think they're all pretty similar in level of difficulty outside of the Giants getting 3 against the Rockies to finish it. That's kind of why, if they're within, even if they're only 1 game back, I mean, they've got a shot if they can sweep the Rockies and, one of these teams loses 2. I don't know if the Giants have the tiebreaker on Cincinnati. They did split the series with them. I'll have to look into that. I know the Mets have the tiebreaker. So the Giants do have to actually pass them, so that 1.5 games they're back is really more like 2.5 or 2.5, however you want to look at it. They do have to pass. So, we'll see. This is a good point, Ernest. Phillies are 2 back of the Brewers now. So, the Brewers might be playing for home field still in that case. So they may have something to play for that last series, although both teams will probably be the top 2 seeds, so they're not going to have to worry about the wild card round. So we'll take a look. I think Giants have 1 game over the Reds when you go divisional record or whatever. Yeah, I'd have to look and see where what we're at. So I think we had a couple questions in here. Someone asked about Piguero in the late innings. I think it's certainly possible. I wouldn't put him as a closer. Not yet. I just, you saw how difficult that was for like Randy to make that adjustment. And, I would have given, I had all the patience in the world for Randy, but, with Piguero, I don't want to destroy the guy's confidence late in the games, like the highest leverage situations when he is got 7 career innings right now or 10 career innings in the majors. Probably a bit too soon for that, but I certainly could see him in the later innings, getting a shot. So, and a couple others in here. Mark asked, my opinion, minor leaguers who are close to being off limits for trades besides Eldridge. Okay, so the way I would put this, I don't think any player is truly 100% off limits. I've come out and said, like, there's a short list of players I would trade Bryce Eldridge for. It's very short. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we're talking like packages for Cal Raleigh or Ellie De La Cruz or Paul Skeens, those kinds of players. So, disclaimer, no player is truly 100% untouchable. But that said, when you start breaking down who is reasonably available, who the players that are going to get traded, who is even possible. And of the people that are out there, I could see guys like Stephen Kwan, maybe a couple front end pitchers, but I don't think there's going to be anybody that's going to be of the caliber or like the, bona fide superstar where I'd say, yeah, let's go ahead and trade Bryce. Now, that said, the only guys in the system that I probably would tend to avoid moving personally, unless it's for like a star caliber player. Yeah, exactly. Bobby Witt Jr. for Eldridge. I mean, it's those kinds of players. It's those caliber guys. The guys that I would probably avoid, you mentioned Bryce. That's obviously one of them. Joshua, I would, especially once he's getting stateside and after what we saw from him, I would tend to want to avoid trading him in a deal currently. Maybe if the right guy comes available, you look at him. I mean, I don't think there's very many untouchables. Bo Davidson, I'm not like itching to trade him either. I don't know if any of you guys saw the home run he hit yesterday. He hit a home run that was, almost probably below the knees, and he hit it out to left center field when it was raining. The ball clearly, wasn't going to be carrying the best in those conditions, and he showed off some pretty incredible power. Putting one out to left center. So, a guy like Bo, who has kind of 5-tool potential, wouldn't really be itching to move him. Guys like Dakota Jordan, I wouldn't be like kicking the door down to move these guys. But, for the right player, I think anybody's got to be on the table. And that's the benefit of them greatly improving their system. You look at teams like the Mariners, the Cubs the last few years. Some of these teams, they have, 7 or 8 top 100 prospects. If you ask their fans, none of them, they don't want to move these guys. Everybody wants to keep all their top prospects, but it's at some point you have to be willing to part with some of them to bring in talent. And that's where, this year alone, you saw the Giants trade, Kyle Harrison, who's a former top 20 prospect. You saw them trade James Tibbs, who was a former top 100 prospect last season before he just kind of fell off. But he was having a really good year for the Giants, so I could have easily seen him creeping back onto the top 100 list. And ever since Boston traded him to the Dodgers and he got down into the Texas League, he's been really good there. You've got to accumulate these assets to be able to make these deals. So, I don't think that anybody is truly 100% untouchable outside of Bryce right now. And that's because of Bryce's age, level, production, you name it, that he's done so far. And then there's a lot of guys that could easily play their way in. And I think Joshua is the one guy that outside of Bryce that I would probably keep off the table. And that's because he's got just a special blend of skills that the Giants just haven't had. I mean, you look at what Bryce was, or what Joshua, I'm sorry, was doing down in the DSL, and I don't use the DSL as like the end all be all. It's kind of like high end high school competition for a lot of these guys. It's not. This isn't the toppest, the highest top end competition they're ever going to face. But um, even so, he produced as advertised. I mean, he was as everybody hoped. The power wasn't great, especially early on, but the way he finished the year, his last 24, 25 games, I mean, all of a sudden you look down at the end of the year, he was 30% better than the league average there. He stole 30 bags. He still had quite a few extra base hits. He drew more walks than strikeouts. Opposing scouts were coming to the games and saying, this guy will stick at shortstop. No problem. They didn't have concerns with his defense. So when you talk about a 17-year-old kid that's already producing 109 mile per hour exit velocities with a wooden bat, and then he's got like pure 70 grade speed with a great glove and all these different things, like that's a special blend of tools that maybe he doesn't pan out, but I wouldn't be getting rid of that. That's just something that the Giants haven't had in forever. So I'd want to see that through a little bit, but you just never know. San Fran fan brings up Rainer Arias. He looked spectacular in the DSL and then hasn't been able to figure it out since. Now he's had a couple injuries, especially wrist injuries that I wonder if he's, I wonder if his like wrist just hasn't gotten fully back, if his strength hasn't fully returned. It's pretty, hard to tell. But he's a guy that he struggled the last couple of years for a variety of reasons. So, you just don't know with some of these guys in the DSL. Want to see them come over to stateside and see how they look. Now, we are kind of trying to plan a trip next May to hit the Complex League. We're going to try and catch a series with the Giants play the Diamondbacks then, but we're gonna try and catch the Complex League. So we're fingers crossed Joshua is going to be there. We can get a good look at him, get you guys some videos during that. That'd be pretty fun. Trying to pull through some of these comments. Keep firing away if you guys have anything you want to talk about. Like I said, we're not going to go too crazy late today. It'll probably be, pretty limited to like 45 minutes to an hour. Dan says, don't forget to like and subscribe. Absolutely. We are, we hit 2K a couple weeks ago, gave away a couple hoodies. I know Sam Fran fan, he's in here. He got one. Greg got one. We are going to open the merch site. Hopefully, put the pressure on Dan if you're looking to buy a hoodie, but we're hoping, I think Dan's hoping October. So, hopefully we're going to be able to open that up. We got some hoodies. Ricky just got some hats came in. So, we'll check those out. Hopefully we'll be able to showcase some of those in a future video here for you guys. But yeah, so let me run through a couple more of these comments. Nate says, not sure how Birdsong is doing, but what are your thoughts on calling him up and throwing him in the bullpen and seeing if he catches fire? Yeah, I mean, okay, so if he was throwing strikes right now, I'd be all for that. Of course, then again, if he was throwing strikes, we'd probably be having him in the rotation, the way our rotation's kind of just thrown together at the moment. But we could try it. I mean, anything, they could try anything at this point. There's a couple other arms down in Sacramento that I would probably lean towards pulling up first, including Trevor McDonald. McDonald's numbers don't jump off the page, but I watch McDonald's slider especially, and he can pump it up to like 97, has a little bit better command than Birdsong has, pretty consistently has shown better command. And I think that slider could be a genuine out pitch and a pretty lethal pitch out of the pen. Guys like Braxton Roxby have been pretty good there. Trent Harris has been pretty good for the last, month or so. He had a horrible start to Sacramento, and he's been pretty good since then. So they have some arms down there that they could toy with, trying to, piece together their pen. But, the problem is at this point with most of these guys, even if you bring them up and if you do make it to the playoffs, like that's great, but most of them can't be on the playoff roster. So it's kind of a, you still would like to try and get there, but, kind of a tough spot to be. Let's see. Serious and sustained contender that occasionally walk over. I'm assuming you're saying over an occasional wild card appearance. Acquire minor league talent, figure it out on a case to case basis in terms of trade. Yeah, I mean that should be the team's goal. Like nobody wants to see this team's goal being a wild card, especially the third wild card. You know, when the Dodgers were winning 105, 106, 110 games almost every year, you know, if you were like a high end contender for the first wild card spot, and maybe if everything went right, like the Giants did, like it did in 2021, you win a division. But if if you were constantly winning 90, 95 games, I wouldn't even be mad. I mean, I still want to see division titles, but like that should be the minimum for a team with the Giants payroll and some of these teams' payrolls. But it's unfortunately right now we're watching them chase like 85 wins, hopefully, and the third wild card, and hopefully next season they can address some of these holes and they can take a step forward. It's nice to see the offense get going. Can they sustain it next season for 6 months or at least most of the season instead of having this offense that's incredibly inconsistent and then just catches fire at the very, very end? We'll see. Yeah, I see Dan talking about the fall league rosters. They got released. Tom, I do not have the full list. As Rob mentioned, Juan Sanchez is making an appearance. He's going there. I do recall seeing Walker Martin, Maui Ahuna, and I'm forgetting someone. There was another relatively big name position player. Somebody check it out. If I can pull up Ricky's IG, I could probably tell you guys, but I remember there were a couple names. There were a few people I would have loved to see go over there, but that I think it would have made sense for. But all the guys that are, I do think it makes sense that I've seen so far. Walker, he's now been around a year and a half. He's been kind of he's had a good year overall in San Jose, but he did have a bit, quite a few struggles kind of at the end. He has had a good series this week though, which has been nice to see, playing against Fresno. And, I think they're trying to kind of jumpstart him a little bit. Like he's a guy that they're going to likely put in Eugene. That's a big step up in competition and, try and get him kind of against some higher competition. Oh, Parks Harbor. Thank you, Rob. Parks Harbor. He's another one you're going to see over there. That's one that I really like going over there. He kind of similar situation a little bit, I think, to Carter Howell when Carter Howell played in the fall league a couple years ago. A little bit older prospect for the level that he's in. He's 23 in high A. I have no doubt in my mind that they're going to start him in Richmond next season. He has absolutely crushed it in Eugene. And, you're trying to, get them because when you go to the fall league, I mean, yeah, some of these guys were playing in A ball, some in high A, you get guys at all sorts of levels in the minors, and you get some, MLB guys doing rehab down there sometimes. Like he's going to see some good competition in the fall league. So I think it's a good idea to, get him over there and try and jumpstart him a little bit. Going into Richmond, because I mean we've seen Richmond can be demoralizing for some of these guys. Luckily a few guys have kind of figured it out. Certain guys like Sabine Ceballos had a horrible start to the year, has been really good since like July 1st. Some of these guys they can perform over in a place like Richmond, but it can be pretty brutal. Yeah, I agree. Jonah Cox would have been a good one to see there. A lot of times they want to get guys with like that miss some time. Parks, as amazing as he's been in Eugene, he did have some injuries that kind of limited his at bats for the year. Maui Ahuna, he's been on and off the IL this season. Fortunately, has missed quite a bit of at bats. So it makes sense to get a guy like Maui there, get him an extra 100+ at bats, get him some work. That's kind of what you see with a lot of these. Bandura struggling with double. Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys do. He still has flashed some good things. Love to see him, finish strong. I think they might be in their last week this week right now. I'd love to see him have a couple good games over the weekend to finish strong. And It's like I kind of mentioned on some of the minor league reports with a lot of these guys, when they play well throughout the year and then they get that, mid to late season promotion, it's pretty common to see struggles. And to me, part of when you promote these guys with 5-6 weeks left, there's a very real possibility all they do is struggle. I mean, look at Xander Darby over in Eugene's a great example. He was phenomenal in San Jose. He's gone to Eugene. He's hit a wall in Eugene over the last month or so, month or two. But what you're hoping out of this is he gets the experience, he learns, he sees how they're attacking him. It's a learning experience for these guys. It's fine to struggle, but now he's going to have an opportunity to go into the offseason knowing what that level's like and trying to attack the offseason appropriately and come back strong next season. So with a guy like Bandura, I kind of view it the same way. He got the promotion. He's had success there. He's had a lot of struggles, but he can learn from it. And he's got a fun skill set where he's got a lot of speed. I wouldn't quite say 5-tool player. I don't think that the power is a little fringy. He can get a hold of one and absolutely crank one, but I don't think the power is going to consistently play enough. So it's more, and he does have a little bit of swing and miss. So the offense has a little bit of holes in it, but there's a lot of potential there with it still. I mean, we see it around baseball. It's just kind of today's game. Swing and miss is just part of the game. But I love the speed. He's got enough power. He hits a lot of line drives. Could be a pretty fun player to watch. Pretty dynamic guy. And like you mentioned, Jonah Cox, his numbers don't jump off the page as far as like batting average, OPS, that stuff goes. But, credit to Jonah Cox, who's put together, I think, a 10 plus homers, 10 triples, 20 doubles, 50 stolen bases. Like he had a great, overall counting stats. He put together a pretty good year. And in the second half, he did cut back on the strikeouts quite a bit. So really promising to see there. Antonio Jimenez, could have been an option. They might have been trying to shield him from the Rule 5. You never know with a lot of these guys, like the motivations. You don't see a lot of guys that are close to Rule 5 eligible, I feel like, get thrown over there. A lot of times you see guys that have only been in the, been around for a year or two, get put on those fall league rosters because they're trying to kind of jumpstart them. I think Charlie Zacconi last season's a good example. He was 24 at the time, had just gotten through, high A, or had played in San Jose, had just kind of started in high A, struggled there. And as an older prospect, it made sense to put him out there and try and, jumpstart him a little bit. And he has this season in Eugene. He's really jumped up in production. So. All right, jumping over back to the big league talk. Even if we make the playoffs, we likely see the Dodgers possibly, the one positive, I mean, depending on how the Giants played out the last, week of games, but if you can get in there and you got to play LA and you can throw Webb and Ray and Verlander at them in a 3-game series or Roop. I mean, I know people don't have the most confidence in Verlander. I get that, but he's actually been pretty solid in the second half. So, I mean, if you can throw those three at the Dodgers and just find a way to score some runs, I mean, you've got a chance. It's a short series. I mean, that's kind of the best time to face the Dodgers. I'd rather get the Dodgers in a 3-game series than a 7-game series. So, I mean, even if you get them, you give yourself a shot. So, all right, let me scroll through some of these comments. I'm sure I missed some. Pursuing a trade for Kadai Senga. Yeah, I mean, just at the end of the day, it depends on what you're giving up for him. There's a lot of players that I would love to explore trades for, but we gotta. I don't know what the cost is going to be. So, speaking of playoffs, though, for those of you that haven't been paying attention or didn't hear me on the minor league update I released on Tuesday, you do have San Jose and Eugene both in their playoffs right now. San Jose took game 1 against Fresno. They scored 2 runs on a Cam Maldonado triple and struck out 16 Fresno Grizzlies in that game. Luis De La Torre started the game, went 5 scoreless, struck out 6, was pretty solid. Best I've seen his slider look all year. And then Hunter Dryden, he was a 17th round pick in the Giants. I think he played in D3, and the Giants may have gotten kind of a steal. He is older for the level, so we'll see. But you look at his stuff, and it's pretty nasty. His fastball's pretty live. Definitely runs it up in the mid to 95, 96 range, and then he's got a pretty good slider to go with that. He struck out 10 guys in 14 or in 4 innings, and the 2 of them combined to strike out Ethan Holiday 4 times in that game, which is pretty impressive. San Jose is currently up 7-4 in the 8th inning. They just tacked on another run. Johnny Level hit a solo home run in this game. That's kind of the big highlight so far, was almost falling down when he hit it. First home run from the right side, I believe, for him. And then other than that, Eugene, they lost their first game. They came close. They were down 4-2. Parks Harbor hit a 2-run home run, tied it in the 8th, went to the 10th, went down 5-4, scored to tie it, and then the guy, I can't remember who pitched for him in the top of the 11th, but couldn't throw a strike. Everett ended up scoring like 4 runs. They lost that game. Had a chance to make it a game, but fortunately they didn't quite complete the comeback. Yesterday they played in Eugene again. They won that game, I think 4-2. Kind of controlled the game start to finish. Charlie had a couple hits. Jacob Christian had an RBI single in that game. Josh Bostic threw, I think, 6 scoreless innings, was really solid. So they're coming up to Everett. They're gonna play tomorrow, their 3rd game. If San Jose wins, they'll have won their series. The Eugene's playing a best of 5. I'm gonna go check out the game tomorrow. Try and give you guys some, if I can. I'm hoping if they give me some good highlights, I will definitely post some of that stuff for you guys. But looking forward to chatting it up with a couple of those players there and seeing how their year's going. And we're going to try and get some of those guys on with us this offseason too, so you guys can hear from them. How long does it take to call up Jesus Rodriguez and send down Grant McCray? I mean, okay, so McCray's really just up for defense and pinch running at this point. I think that's pretty clear when you watch what's going on. You're only really seeing him late, like 8th inning. He'll come in for Elliot Ramos, or they might use him in a pinch run situation. He's getting very little playing time, so I don't think McCray's really going to go anywhere. I'd love to see Jesus Rodriguez. I actually think he looked pretty. I watched a couple of his starts last week behind the plate. I don't feel like he's as far off as it's been made out at times, but I mean, it's definitely a downgrade defensively when you watch Jesus versus, versus a guy like Bailey, or even like Kisner right now. But he's definitely got some potential. So I think they're going to try and get him work at catcher for the rest of this season. And, we'll see how he looks come spring training. I think he could absolutely play for, play for that backup job in spring training. But I think this year is probably not going to happen. But Cost doesn't play outfield, so that's the problem. They're especially when we've seen what we've seen out of Ramos defensively at times. I get why they have McCray up right now. Like, that's the thing. If it was just like if the glove was not a factor at all, Jesus would probably be the backup right now, because his bat has got to be better than what they're getting from Kisner. I really like his approach. Lots of line drives. Really drives the ball well the opposite way, but he has pulled a couple pretty nice ones. He's not going to hit a ton of homers, but I mean, all he's done is hit 300 at basically every level that he's played at. So I definitely think it's in play for him to be a pretty damn good hitter up in the majors. Should we be worried about the Reds? I mean, I think it's really up in the air with all 3 teams. Who's going to make it? I kind of talked about that a little bit earlier. The schedules are all, relatively even as far as level of difficulty goes. And, we'll just see who's playing the best ball. I will say this, of the 3 teams, that are in contention, I think the Reds have the best manager with Tito. So, we'll see. He's got them playing some good ball at the end of the year. So time will tell there. Is Bostic dominating in Eugene? Yeah, Bostic's been really good. His fastball is really solid. He's got a big curveball that's been pretty effective. He's kind of it feels like he's adding a slider. He had a little bit different movement on his breaking ball in yesterday's outing. Wouldn't shock me if he's kind of toying with some stuff there because for most of the year it's been mostly fastball, curveball. I've noticed that. The one big thing I've seen with Bostic this season is his command in the second half has drastically improved. In the first half, I want to say it was around 52 innings or 50. It was like 50 something innings. He had like 27 walks. Or might have been, or 20, it was 20 something walks. I can't remember the exact number. I had it written down somewhere and I don't remember where I had it. But he was walking like 4.7 per 9 in the first half. The second half, in like over 60 innings, he has 12 walks. He's cut it down to like 1.5. So his command is really taking a step forward. Really good to see. He's got kind of a almost off balance finish where I do wonder if he's going to, if the command is going to be a bit of a struggle for him at times. But overall, I mean, it's been, really good in the second half, and it's great. He's been less of a roller coaster this season when you look at the big picture than he was last season. Like that was the big thing when he was down in San Jose for me. Joe Whitman's similar. A lot more downs than ups this season, unfortunately for Whitman. But you see these guys really, they'll have these, 5 perfect innings, and then the next game it's 2 innings and they gave up 5 or 6, and then it's like 6 innings of 1-run ball, 3 innings of 5-run ball, and it's just a lot of up and down. There's not a lot of consistency there, and Bostic's strung together a lot of really solid starts in the second half, a lot more consistency, which is really promising to see. This comment right here, I would 1,000,000% agree with. The Giants have guys like, Drelmy. Bostic has the frame that he looks like he could be a potential starter long term. I get that. Drelmy, they're easing Maldonado back from, I think he had a elbow injury last season or the year before. They're still slow rolling him. But I agree. Dryden, similar situation. Probably could be a pretty nasty reliever. But yeah, like a guy like McDonald for sure. I mean, when these guys are getting to Sacramento and they're still showing massive command problems that they've had since they were down in the lower levels, and they have, a legit out pitch, just get them in the pen, like rip the Band-Aid off that and don't just let them sit there trying to figure it out as a starter for a full year and a half down in Sacramento. Like if we hit that point, go ahead and rip it off, especially when they're like 25, 26 years old. I definitely would agree with that. A guy like Birdsong is difficult for me because he was still really young. I think he's going to be 24 next season. He has 4 pitches that could be like plus pitches, and that's why I really like his overall pitch mix, and I would like to see them continue to try him as a starter. But I do think with like a Birdsong, if you get about halfway into next season and he's still like having command issues, I think that's about the time that I would be going, all right, we're putting you in the pen and you're probably going to stay there, because he has high end late inning, reliever potential. So similar thing. Roxby, he's going to be in the pen. I don't think they're going to use him as any kind of bulk reliever. Although I guess you never really know with this team. So Steven Ortega says, is tomorrow a must-win game for the Giants? I mean, it almost feels like all of them are must-win games at this point, but I would say they really need to try and, they really need to win 2 in this series. So, I mean, if they lose tomorrow, but they win the next 2, I wouldn't quite say it was a must win, but I would say they must win 2 is kind of how it feels. But I say that, and the Mets are just free falling. So it's like, I don't want to count on that forever. But at the end of the day, the teams ahead of you aren't really running away from you either. It's kind of, the Giants, the way the Mets have been playing, the Giants might win one and still gain ground on them. Although the Reds would probably go ahead of them. But yeah, they really need to win too at the end of the day. Would you have Weber and Ray pitch every fourth day? I can't advocate for that for Robbie Ray, not coming off Tommy John. Webb, if he says his arm's good, maybe you just let him do it, but I probably wouldn't do that with Ray. I would agree with this. The general idea of this is that they're all must-win games. For anybody watching the game in San Jose, it is getting quite interesting. It's all of a sudden a one-run game, and Fresno has loaded the bases, although I think they just gotten out at second. Okay, so Tidwell had some shoulder soreness. That's why he has not been called up. That's why he is not currently pitching at the moment. So, I don't know if his whole year is done. I think it kind of nicks the chance of him coming up to San Francisco, though. Unfortunately, I do feel like he was 100% a lock to come up if he was healthy. The way he was throwing and the way they needed another starter. How much better would we all feel if Blade Tidwell was making starts instead of Carson Seymour or Kaiwei Tang? I'd be feeling pretty good about that. I after watching what I saw in Sacramento, his 3 or 4 starts. So, what's the bigger challenge to overcome against the Dodgers, pitchers or bats? Probably the bats ultimately. Yamamoto is, him and Glasnow are pretty tough, but the Dodgers bullpen has not been as good as people expected. Their starters, it's a bit, a lot of them don't go particularly deep in games. Yamamoto is probably the toughest of them, but the Giants have shown they can get to him a little bit. So I would lean bats just because overall their lineup's pretty deep. Giants pitching has historically struggled against them quite a bit. Robert says, would you sign Verlander for one more year? I'm a lot more open to it now than I was 3 months ago. 3 months ago, we were kind of begging to get the guy out of here, trade him to contender and give him a shot there. The way I'll put it is he cannot be your only guy. Like, if they need to go get a good solid starting pitcher that's at minimum like a 2 or 3 level starter. Verlander cannot be the only guy you go get. But that said, if you bring in a guy, like maybe they trade for like a Freddie Peralta or they sign somebody, sign a free agent, Fromber, or I need to go look at the free agent list, but like, you sign a really solid starter. I think you could make a case to bring back Verlander, but I do think it's more likely that they're going to, Ranger Suarez, that's a really good one. I think it's more likely that they're going to bring in a guy that's kind of more of like a bulk guy or a guy that has the ability to start games and have that guy compete with the young pitchers. So, you got to bring in, you got to bring in a high end guy, but if you bring in another bulk guy to compete with the Carson Wisenhunts, the Blade Tidwells, that if he doesn't win the job, you feel comfortable putting him in as like a bulk guy. I think that might be the play because I don't want to just block all the young guys and not ever give these guys chances. I want to see what Blade Tidwell can do. You don't know when you're going to hit on one of these guys. Landon Roop looks really solid overall in the year. He's had a couple hiccups and the knee injury was kind of a freak thing, but it's it's just it's a tough situation to put yourself in. Merrill Kelly, that's another guy that's out there. Verlander's just tough because with his age and everything, if he's going to, if you're going to bring him back, I don't think he's going to be accepting of, I'm just going to compete for the fifth starter. Like he's going to want assurance when he comes in that he's going to start the year in the rotation. So that's where it gets kind of tough with a guy like Verlander at his age. But Merrill Kelly, he's been really solid this year. He's done well. Michi says we need Langoliers. I don't see him getting traded next season. Maybe after next season, the A's have a tendency to trade guys with 2 years left on their deal. So maybe, maybe you see that then, but I don't think it's likely this season or this offseason. What would a trade package for Freddie Peralta look like? Probably not cheap at the end of the day. But he only has 1 more year on his contract. So I can't say it's going to be super cheap, but I don't think you'd have to give up, Joshua, Bryce, or Bo. Like, I don't think you're going to give up any of those 3 in that deal. Yeah, Wisenhunt's knocking on the door. So, I think if you guys have any other topics you want to cover, we can do it really quick. Get Gallon's a free agent next year as well. We're going to wrap it up. Like I said, it's just me tonight, so we're not going to go too crazy long on this one. I can only talk consecutively for so long before my voice starts going. But Rob, I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to have to check the schedule. San Jose did just hold on for dear life and win 7-6. So good for them. Fresno did not make it easy. They scored 2 runs in the 9th and hit a line drive up the middle that could have been, if Miola was a little bit off to the side, that might have been a hit and tied the game. So good for San Jose. Really nice to see. It's their first series win, I think, in like 3 or 4 years. So, it's really nice to see. Which player would we want batting, needing a crucial base hit? You know what? This might shock some people, and I think a lot of people actually might not be shocked by this. As of right now, and I mean, some of this is like matchup based, like who's on the mound. Is it a righty or lefty? But like if it's a righty on the mound, give me Dom Smith right now. He's not their best hitter, but he's given the best at bats, especially late in games. It's been kind of he's been pretty clutch late in games, getting them big hits. So that's probably who I would want at the moment. I would love to see them bring him back. So, universe on the line, Iguodala. I always think of that Max Kellerman. I want Iguodala gif. It's hilarious. Yeah, it's gonna be tough to re-sign Dom. It's gonna be heavily dependent on how the team views Bryce, because I think if you bring Bryce back, or if you're planning, let me rephrase that. If you're planning on Bryce being on the opening day roster, that's your first base DH right there, because you're going to have Bryce and Devers on the same roster. You're not going to keep 3 first basemen. So the pathway for Dom is going to turn into he's going to have to play some outfield. And even then, I don't know how much time's available to him with Gilbert, Matos, Ramos, whoever else is here. I don't know how much time is going to be available for him there. And I think for Dom, as much as he would probably want to be back, I think he's going to get an opportunity from a team somewhere to play more and have a bigger role and probably make a little more money. So he's earned a bit of a pay increase for himself. He's earned a bigger role from a team. He's going to get it somewhere. And I mean, yeah, Michi, he's earned another year. It's just the problem is who's there waiting. I love Dom Smith, but if they determine that Bryce Eldridge is ready, you're not keeping Bryce Eldridge in AAA because you have Dom Smith. Like, that's just the reality. And it's not to be disrespectful at all to Dom Smith. It's just, if you think Bryce is ready, that's your future. You're going to turn it over. You know, when the Giants had Buster Posey sitting in Sacramento, and then they pulled him up. Actually, it might have still been Fresno at the time, but when they had Buster sitting down in AAA and they brought him up and pretty quickly moved off of Benji Molina. Benji Molina was still a very good catcher and productive catcher at the time. You know, like, it's, if it's your future, you're going to just do it. And you move on, as much as it sucks, because I really like Dom. He's been one of my favorite Giants in recent years. As far as like role players that are genuinely productive and even in pretty difficult situations. So, and yeah, Wilmer's gone. Yeah, he gone. I do not see a universe in which Wilmer Flores is back. I don't see that situation happening. So I like Dom, but nostalgia isn't winning for us. And you know what? In all fairness to Dom Smith, like, he has done a lot to help this team win games. He has come through in a lot of situations. He's been very good defensively at first base. Dom Smith is not the problem with this team. This team has a lot of holes, and in all credit to him, this season, he has not been the problem. I mispronounced Yachty as Benji. Are you referring to when I was talking about the Posey trade? That was Benji. Did I say Yachty? It was Benji. Yeah, Tom Murphy's gone. He'll probably be suing the team. I'm trying to find. So Tom, Bryce's defense, it's been much better from 2023 to 2024 to 2025. He has taken a huge jump forward in defense. It was definitely very rough last season. This season, I can't say I've noticed him on the field in like any kind of major negative way, which is good, because like, I don't want to notice you defensively unless it's obviously like spectacular. Like, if you're having a rough year defensively, like Ramos has, like, he's very noticeable on defense. I don't want to notice you. Like, I want you to be more Dom Smith, where the note, it's just like, hey, yeah, he made a nice pick. He makes the plays that he should make. He just kind of does his thing, right? And with Bryce, I've seen some pretty solid, he's made some pretty solid plays. He doesn't make a lot of the spectacular plays. He's a big guy, so he's not going to have like the greatest range or anything like that. I've seen him make some nice picks though over at first base. Like, you can tell he's made improvements. I don't know what he's exactly at right now. I know I looked several weeks ago, and he had only made one error in Sacramento since he had gotten the promotion there. He had made 6 on the season, and I think last season he had made like 18 or 17 or 18. So you're seeing a big drop off in the errors. Now, that's not obviously the end all be all. Nick Castellanos, I think, set a record for most games without an error, and he is pretty widely regarded as an atrocious outfielder. Just because you don't make it errors doesn't necessarily mean you're good defensively. But we'll kind of see. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Hey, man, look at what Benji did as a Giant. He was still a pretty solid player, and he won a couple Gold Gloves. So I wouldn't say he's terrible. And he was hitting a little bit when he was with San Francisco. Big boy hit for the cycle too when he went to Texas. So put some respect on Benji's name. Is rotating Bryce at first with Devers a solid long-term plan? I mean, I would prefer they both be holding down a defensive position. But at the end of the day, if they both hit, that's all that really matters at the end of the day. If you can get solid defense, not, defense that's going to kill you, but if you can get average to a little bit above average defense out of them at first, and then between the two of them, they just crush baseballs. you won't really care about someone taking up DH spot. I personally don't like having an everyday DH, but if they are, 40% better than league average hitters, hitting 40 bombs, like I don't care. Those are the guys that you make exceptions for. So hopefully hopefully Bryce shows that he's worth that, but time will tell. What are the chances we bring back Tyler Rogers? I'm going to wrap it up here in a few, but what are the chances we bring back Tyler Rogers? I feel like it would be peak trade deadline fleecing if we trade away Rogers for good prospects and beat the Mets to the wild card and then bring back Tyler. I mean, that would be an all-time gut punch for the New York Mets fan base. I will say that. I really like the haul we got for Rogers. I'm still higher on Tidwell overall as a player than Gilbert after what I was seeing from him. But I like the energy Gilbert brings. I like his overall game. I do think he's a tad limited overall as a player, but I think he brings a lot of what this team needs. Some good contact ability. Hits, I like his bat to ball skills overall. Has some really solid power. I mean, hit that one in Coors Field like 110 miles per hour, and good defense, really good arm. He brings something that the team needs. That's for sure. But the energy is insane. The guy's a absolute. I think Dan called him a psychopath last week. So, but yes, I think. Sorry to answer your original question. I do think bringing back Rogers is in play, especially with the way the bullpens looked. I would not be shocked if they bring him back. I don't think it's going to be a cheap deal. I mean, that's the concern I have. I don't think he's really going to it's not like he's reliant on velocity. So I don't necessarily think that you're going to see his performance just fall off a cliff. I was of the belief that eventually the league would kind of not figure him out. That shouldn't be the right word, but they would adjust a little bit and he would just lose a little bit of his effectiveness. And I mean, he really hasn't, to his credit. So, if they can get him back on like a 2 or 3 year deal, it would not shock me. I think he's going to get at least 3. I would not go 4. If someone's going to give him 4 years, I would just let him go. But if you can get him on 2 or 3, I'd probably consider that pretty heavily. All right. Got any more last second ones you guys want to throw in there before we wrap this up? I appreciate you guys all hanging out. We still have like 178 people in here. As we say every week, if you guys enjoy this, do please hit that like, hit that subscribe. We've got a lot of things coming for you guys in the off season. All right. We are obviously the minor league updates are going to come to a close here in a couple weeks. I think we've only got about 2 more of them. Maybe 3. I think it's really just 2. But the minor league updates are going to come to a close, but with the off season, that comes usually we can get some of these minor leaguers once their season wraps up. We can get some of these guys to join us, share their stories a little bit, tell you guys, what they're working on, what they thought of their seasons, all that good stuff. So hopefully we're going to have some of these guys starting to join us, every couple weeks or every week or 2, once the off season hits. We'll let you guys know. We do try and announce them at least a day or 2 in advance if we can, but we'll have some of that coming. We have some ideas for different things. We've brought up I think we brought up the merchandise already. We've talked about some of that. We do have a few other website that we're working on building right now. We don't have a Discord, but that would be actually probably a pretty good idea. I'll leave Dan. Dan's our tech guy. He's the IT caveman Dan. But we'll leave, maybe we do that after we get the website and all that up. He's got a lot on his plate right now. And we have some other special guests that we're looking to bring in the off season. We'll bring you guys all the normal stuff that we normally do. We'll be talking. I'll give my thoughts on, players they should pursue, thoughts on the off season, all that good stuff. But, let's hope we can kind of delay that a little bit. I'd like to see this team sneak into the playoffs still and us get to talk about some playoff baseball. It'd be really nice. I don't really want to wait another year for that. But yeah, so there's some stuff coming in the off season. We do have an idea for kind of a membership side of things. It will be an inexpensive membership, but it's going to come with a lot of cool content with the goal to basically reinvest anything we get from that back into you guys, meaning like us going to spring training, going to more games to try and, do more in-person stuff, things like that. So when we get to that point, when we're ready to make the jump there, we will lay that out for you guys, kind of what that would look like, what you guys would get with all that. But rest assured, all of the stuff that we already produce right now, minor league updates, player interviews, our weekly live shows, that will always remain on the free side. I'm not going to start gatekeeping content like that. So that's the goal there. So hopefully when we get that up, we'll be able to bring that to you guys. But let me just look one last second at what we've got in here. Any questions? I think someone did ask about, let's see, a couple more. I've got like 2 or 3 more I'll jump through really quick. Jason Contreras says, thoughts on the closer role? I do not trust Walker. I don't either. I kind of touched on this earlier. Unfortunately, he's really all they have right now. If he is their closer next season, we have got a serious problem. We do not have Randy next season. Reality is Eric Miller, kind of similar to Ryan, where he's got a little bit, some command issues that make him a bit unreliable, but at least Eric Miller's a late inning option when he gets healthy. But I mean, in Peguero, I could see a scenario. I just think he's a little too green right now to throw into that role. But I think you kind of just have to stick with Walker and hold your breath at the moment, as frustrating as that is. And that's going to be something they have to address in the offseason. Who mans right field next season? I'd lean Gilbert as of today, but I could see them trading for someone as well. And I mean, we'll see how Matos and Gilbert finish the year. Maybe one of those guys does enough that the team feels pretty good about it. So, yeah. All right. I think that's going to be a wrap for tonight. I actually took this a little longer than I was expecting, but I still appreciate you guys all hanging out. Hopefully next week we'll be back. We'll have, hopefully we're going to have Dan and Ricky back next week. And we will be back with the minor league update on Tuesday. That's going to be the next time you see us. I will talk about all of the, AAA, AA action. I will cover the high A, San Jose. San Jose won their series. So only 2 games there, but we'll talk about all that. I'll show some highlights. And like I kind of mentioned, hopefully I'll be able to share a few. I mean, they're not going to be the greatest quality. Fair warning, everybody. It's going to be cell phone videos here. But I am going to try and take a couple, snag a couple videos from the game tomorrow. And, I might go check out the game on Saturday too. Haven't decided. I know Charlie McDaniel's pitching that. He's somebody that we're hoping to have on the show. Might try and get some, try and snag some seats right behind home plate for that one. So appreciate you guys. I will catch you guys on Tuesday, and go Giants.